Hello everybody, my name is Tiffany, I'm the Tipsy Artist, and we are going live today to teach you a beautiful painting. I call this Good Things Are Coming, and I'm so excited to see y'all today. We have been without internet with a really bad ice storm for quite a while, so yay, we're back, it's awesome. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about this painting. It does have a kit online, tipsyartist.com, and we have a really cute little traceable that goes with it, so it makes it really, really easy. So you can just trace this out. And I've jumped ahead a little bit and just went ahead and worked that part out. We also have a Sharpie that comes with the kit, so if you do want to hard line this out, you certainly can. With this particular painting, it can definitely be optional. This is definitely a painting that can be a little bit softer around the edges, and I actually don't have a lot of hard lines around this particular style of painting in the final result. So yeah, very optional on that hard line. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave mine as a pencil drawing, and we're going to work with that. All right. Hello, Mariah. So glad you're home out of the hospital. Yay! So you've had a very, we'll call it exciting week. So yes. And hi Tracy and hi Rolinda. So, and Gina, hello, hello. Oh my gosh, I feel like it's been forever since I've seen y'all. So with the combination of just family time and you can't hear me. Uh-oh, that's not good. Well, can anybody else hear me? Let me know. I don't want to keep filming if nobody can hear me. We are having, I just peeled some paint off my chair. Isn't that wonderful? We are having some internet issues. So, huge hello from England. Hello, Kirsty. Hello, Nancy. All right, somebody else let me know if you can hear the audible of my voice at all. So I just need to make sure I can keep on going. So, I don't know. I can hear you. Okay. Good deal. Thank you so much. All right. So let me go ahead and talk about our tools here real quick. All right. So we've got some water, and then I have a whole bunch of brushes nearby, but in our kit, we do give you these little lovelies. So we have the mama brush and little buddy, and then a little bit brush. And then we have an awesome little paint kit. And of course yours is full, mine's kind of a mess. So I've got this, and I have a whole bunch of these. So mine are loved and used, and they're just kind of a big chaotic mess right now, but that's all right. And then I've got a little rag, but we do provide some paper towels with your kit too, and a little apron, all kinds of fun stuff. And then you want to grab some plates. We also put these in the kits now. We've been doing this for a while now, so I've come to realize we pretty much provide everything except for, at this point, but the only thing we don't provide, of course, is water. Post office does not like to ship water, so you have to come up with your own water and the cup, but we are working on that. So water cup is coming soon. We're working on that, but that's about the only thing we don't provide. Everything else is in the kit, so that's awesome. All right, so the very first thing I'm gonna go ahead and start with here is I'm gonna go ahead and start on just all the background color first. So let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the mama brush. So here's mama, little flat brush here. And then I've got some white already placed on my plate, but then I'm going to add just a tiny amount of blue as well. So let's go ahead and grab some blue. So I'm gonna use some of this primary cyan blue here. And I'll do just a little bit off to the side. And sorry, everything, I've got a little bit of chaos going on today. I've got used paint plates. I don't normally do that. I normally start fresh so you can see exactly what I'm doing, but I'll just give you a little visual. So I've got this cyan blue, and I've got a lot of white here to begin with. And then if you want to add just a tiny little touch of lavender in your sky, it is optional, but let's go ahead and do that too. That's kind of a fun thing. So I've got some violet. All right, and then I'm going to go ahead and do a little touch of this on my plate here as well. Okay. Now you can add a little touch of water here just to get your brush moist. If you are working in a vertical state like I am, I would go ahead and dry it off a little bit so that you don't have any excess water in the brush that can create water runs. But if you do want to play with the water a little bit and just help it extend the paint, you're certainly more than welcome to do that. It's actually encouraged. But what I do recommend there is that you go ahead and place your canvas on a flat surface, and then that way you can freely use the water to mix and work in with your paint, and you don't have to worry about it running down the canvas. So, but again, just hold it flat. I always have to keep mine in a vertical state so that you can see it really well through the teaching process. So I try to keep my excuse me. Apparently I need some water. I didn't know I needed water. I haven't really talked all day, but I haven't talked all week, but now I need water. Hold on. Okay, so we have a brush that is just moist, and then we've got some of this lovely white here, and we've got our cyan blue and a little bit of violet. So I'm gonna go ahead and take my mama brush. I'm gonna grab a nice healthy dollop of the white, and then I'm gonna touch into a tiny amount of that blue. We're gonna start really small with that. I want this blue to be very faint in the background. So we'll pre-mix this, get a really light blue happening. And then I still have that little bit of violet, so I'm gonna go ahead and just barely touch into that as well and mix that through. So it's starting to create a little bit of a, make sure I get this in the frame there. See, there it is, a little bit of a periwinkle effect. So that lavender kind of creates a little bit of periwinkle. That was always my favorite color when I was little. All right, so we've got quite a bit of this to work in. Still have a lot of white, so I'll be kind of working back and forth between these. So I'm gonna go ahead and work this into the background. And as I push it into the background, I'm gonna go ahead and work this back and forth. And there's another method you can use as well. So you can also do something a bit more textural to where it kind of looks like you make little cross strokes, just back and forth. Remember to keep alternating back and forth with the white as well so that you get that really nice texture happening. And then on the website in the original painting, there's a lot of pounce effect texture. So I still recommend doing all this flat color to begin with, just to give you a nice layer. But then once you have this layer down, then you can also start to come back in with the pounce effect texture. So what you do with that is you take the side of your brush, push it into like a little bit of white or the darker color as well, and then you just want to hit on the side of the brush. And I'll bring this a little bit closer, but you can see how it's definitely creating a lot more drama with the texture. So it's definitely a lot more textural. And again, it's just hitting on the side of the brush. So, and depending on your mood and what kind of stress release you need, that might be very desirable for you at the moment. So you can decide if that's something you like, or you can just do something a bit more fluid and smooth by just taking it just kind of back and forth. Just long horizontal strokes back and forth. You can also touch into the white this way. Also, little bits of those darker colors too. You can actually kind of take those back and forth. That's another fun effect you might want to play with and see if you like that. Or again, that little cross stroke effect, which again, just as a recap on that, that one looks a little bit more like this. And you can still pull in some of those darker colors. It just looks a little bit different as you blend it in. So you can see that's also really pretty, but it is a little bit different, a little bit of a different texture. So I can just kind of work this into the background. And then I will go ahead and cut in around this little, it's kind of like a little church out in the country. Old white church. I think on the website I called this, I think it's called God's peaceful pasture or something like that. Gosh, I really should have looked before I came on. But yeah, if you're looking for it, well, no worries. I'll be sure to put the link in the description, so you can actually have a direct link right to it. So don't worry about that. I'll get it figured out, and then I'll put the right title in there. Okay, so we're gonna do our little bit of a cut-in work here, and then I do change how I hold the brush for this. So in this background, I was holding the brush more parallel to the canvas, just back and forth. And then when I go to cut in, then I hold it more like a pencil, where that nice tight line edge goes right towards the canvas. So that will help me have a little bit more precision as I get in and around these little shapes in here. So I'll go ahead and knock out that cut-in work first, and then once I've got that, then I can go back to holding the brush out to the side, and then I'll just kind of pull that out. So I'll push into where I cut in, and then kind of pull out into the background, and then I can softly blend that in back and forth, either with that horizontal stroke back and forth, or those little cross strokes back and forth here too. So this is becoming a lovely sky. And it can definitely depend on your mood. Every single time that I paint this, it seems like it changes for me. So sometimes the sky can be a little bit more gray, or it can be a little bit more blue, or have more tones of the lavender in it. I know that right now what's really trending a lot is the muted tones. So I think a lot of people like to use a lot more white and a lot more of the subtle gray, so that the painting stays a lot more muted and it's not real bright. It's also a lot more neutral to go with that neutral farmhouse look. It stays really light. So keep that in mind too. You can add a whole lot more white to it. I think I'm just really craving more blue, because we've had gray for like, seems like a week. And so I'm just sick of it. So I'm actually adding a little bit more of the blues and the brighter colors. But still adding a lot of white so that it stays really light and bright, very neutral. Okay. So we have beautiful sky. All right, there's our beautiful sky. Okay, next up, we're gonna go ahead and work in the solid colors of the, let's see, what do I wanna do? I've got an image over here I'm looking at. Gosh, decisions. Let's go ahead and do the round first. All right, so I am rinsing out my mama brush. Get it all cleaned off. And then we have some warmer tones in here, and so I'm going to go ahead and grab some of this primary yellow. And then I want to go ahead and mix up some brown too. So many of you just have brown to start with, but if you have our kit, you actually have to mix brown. So I'm going to tell you how to mix that up. So this is a good little rule to know anyway. So brown is actually, it's some cadmium orange and some black. This is a brand new tube, so I need to go ahead and remove the foil from that. All right, so I'm gonna put some orange off to the side there, and then I'll get some black out here. Let's see, where is my black? There it is. Okay, so we have Mars Black. Oh, runaway cap. Still run, oh my gosh. Okay, sorry, I'm having a runaway cap issue. I got it, Okay, so now Mars Black here. Let's go ahead and get some off to the side there as well. And I'm gonna start with equal parts to begin with. Okay, so I have some orange and some black. Let's mix those two together. So the more black, the darker the brown, and then the more orange, the lighter the brown. So we've made a really nice chocolate brown to kind of work into. And then of course you can add a little bit more of this white to lighten it up. That's one way. Or if you don't want it to be that cool, you can also kind of just add a lot more of the orange to it. So let me show you what that looks like as well. So we'll get a little bit more orange off to the side. Okay. And you can see how this is also becoming a lot lighter, but still maintains that warm quality to it. And when I added the white, it really kind of cooled it off, definitely changes it. So there's some different options there. It kind of almost took it to like a khaki color over there. All right, so I'm just trying to get some variety happening here. So I've got a dark brown to kind of punch into, this really light brown to work into. And I've got some of my primary yellow still. And some white. All right, so on my plate, again, I've got my darker chocolate brown, some lighter brown. I basically just added some white to that brown that we mixed up with the orange and the black. And then I've got my primary yellow, and then I have my white off to the side here. So we're gonna be playing kind of back and forth with all these. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my mama brush. I've got a clean one over here ready to go. All right, so I'm going to start with my primary yellow. And this is going to be all of the ground line in here. And this is extremely bright, especially when you look at the original online. So I definitely take some time to mute it as the process continues, but in the beginning, it will look very light. So now I'm gonna pick up a little bit of this white, push that into it, and also a little bit of the brown. Kind of push that back and forth. This takes it to kind of like a gold color. And that's going to be a really nice base for what we're trying to achieve here. So again, I'm gonna start with all this primary yellow. And then while the paint is still wet, then I will work in some of this chocolate brown just right into it. And I need a lot more of this primary yellow. So again, primary yellow, I'm gonna grab some more of this, because we have a large area down here in the base to work into, so I'm gonna need a lot of this paint. And then this yellow goes all the way up to this little line right there, all the way across. And then a little bit of that chocolate brown mixed right in. And if it goes a little bit darker in certain areas, that's okay. That's kind of a nice little touch. And let's see, let's just keep going with more of that primary yellow, and you can add a little bit of white in here too. And then again, if you have it in a flat position on your kitchen table, you can always just add a little bit of water into the mix as well. That helps extend the paint. And I don't do that here because of water runs. So I Just try to keep my brush just moist. So I'm going to keep going. This bright color as a base will work all the way to the base of the painting. So I'll take it in just sweeping strokes, just back and forth. And then work in that brown. Oh, that got a lot of black in that. That was a lot of a darker brown. That's okay, we can work it out. So I'm gonna add a lot more of that yellow in there. And let's do a little touch of white. And see, while it's still wet, it's still very easy to manipulate at this point. So I can still push in a lot of the brighter colors. So I can still keep working in a lot of those brighter yellows and whites in here. So I'll take this all the way across. And see that brown is actually pretty nice in there now. It just kind of sweeps right in, does a nice soft blend. Just keep taking this all the way across. Now another thing you need to think about is, in order to keep it from looking too choppy, you want to make sure that your brush strokes go all the way across. And I don't lift off pressure until I actually extend all the way off. Otherwise it gets a little bit choppy on the surface and you see the ending of the brush stroke. So again, just make sure you keep taking that brush all the way across here. And then you can always kind of lighten up a little bit with a little bit more of the primary yellow. Still working with my mama brush. So I'll just kind of sweep that in. And I'm going to come right back over all this. So this is a great foundation, and I will be working in more texture a little bit later, but for right now, we're trying to just do our color blocking and get that solid color as a nice foundation, a base in the background. All right, so really nice foundation now. Okay, so next up we're going to go ahead and do our lovely little church here. And I'm going to go ahead and work in the darker grays to begin with. All right, so I'm going to clean off that brush. And little lesson on that, basically you just take your brush in the water, turn it round, 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 hard pressure. That helps release the paint, and then I just pull out until it's clean, and then just go ahead and wipe off with either a rag or your paper towels that we have in the kit. Okay, so I'm actually going to switch over to my little buddy brush. So here's little buddy, a little bit smaller, and again I'm using, I can still kind of dab into some of those really pretty colors we mixed in the beginning, which is our blue and our purple and our white. That can be a little hint of color in here, but I'm also wanting to mix up some gray. So I'm basically working on the shadow that happens, or the darker parts of the roof line actually. So let's see, we want to make sure we've got our Mars Black. So I need a little bit more, because I definitely want all of this to be completely cool. I don't want any of those warmer tones, so don't be tempted to go back into the section where you mix with orange, because you do not want those warm tones in there. That would not be right. So I'm going to go ahead and do some fresh black over here. All right, so there we go. We've got some fresh, clean black. All right, and then I've got a lot of backup white over here. So I'm going to take my little buddy brush, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up some white. There's a nice little dollop of it. I'm going to put it over here. Do a little bit of that black. Let's get that mixed up. This gives me a really pretty gray. All right. So there's our lovely gray. So that's nice. We've got a nice big amount of that. I'm going to add a little bit more white. Let's do a bigger amount just to kind of dip into and have it to dip into as we need it. All right. And then remember, we can always kind of grab some of that lavender too as we go for a nice little pretty accent in there. But I'm going to start with just the gray to begin with. And the first section of my roof that I want to just be gray is this part right in here. And I definitely want it to be contrasting to that sky. So I'm going to make this an even darker charcoal right up here at the top. And I'm using the line edge of my little buddy brush. That way I can have a nice thin line, helps me have a lot more precision. And then I'll go ahead and work in that little corner there. But this whole section right in through here is going to be a little bit darker than the rest of our little church or a little house. You can be a little church or a little house, either one. So again, this whole section a little bit darker. So I've got that line done, and then I'll work in that softer gray. And just work that into this entire section here. And I do have this side here is just going to have this one little line of gray here. And again, the line with the traceable definitely provides all this line work for you, so you don't have to navigate through perspective. It's all there for you. So we'll go ahead and just push this in first here. And you can either leave it darker, it's up to you, or this is a time where you can play a little bit with it. So you can do little touches of that lavender, kind of push that through, which that lightens it up a little bit, or little touches of that white. So you've got your darker base now with that contrast, and then I can just kind of push in a little bit of that lavender. And then the next section that's going to be a little bit darker is this little tiny section in here. So I still want to use my gray in there as well. So I've got, still using the same brush, Little Buddy, and I'm going to go ahead and push into this little section right in through here. So a little bit of gray there. And then this little line right in through here. And then we also want to do these little lines right in through here. So just kind of highlight those, or rather define, that's the better word. That's the better word, define. Define those with the darker gray here. Okay, and then also through here. Let's go ahead and get these defined as well. And then same thing in here. I want to make sure and do this one more line with that darker gray. And again, to me, it's easier just to use the line edge of the brush. Let's finish that one off. And then I want to do a little bit more of a touch of lavender in that thin section there. So I took my little buddy brush and I went ahead and just washed it off. Dry it off now, and then I'm going to go back in with just that little bit of lavender, really light lavender that we mixed up in the very beginning. And then I'm going to go ahead and push that into this little section right in through here. So it's just a little bit lighter, and that helps create that perspective. But it's a real simple way to do it, so you don't lose it. I'll take it right in through here. And then one more area too will be right in through here. All right, and then I have a much darker area right here in the center. So I'm actually going to use a little bit brush with our little kit here. And so I want a much darker charcoal. So I'm gonna push into a lot more of the black. You can touch into a little bit of that white if you want, but you definitely want to keep it really dark. And then to have more control, I'm gonna do a quick little twist here. So I twist it between my fingertips, spin into the paint. That loads up the brush with paint, but then it also twists it into a nice fine point, so that makes it a lot easier to control. And then I can rest the weight of my hand on my pinky. That helps stabilize my hand. And then the other thing that really helps too, this is where I recommend holding it flat. You can add just a tiny touch of water. Make sure I do a little tap to release the excess. But having that little bit of water really helps get into those tiny little areas in there. And I want to make sure you can see that, but it really helps a lot. All right, so that's quite a bit darker in there. If you don't have the water, what happens is there's a lot of dry brush effect that happens, and it's really hard to get those nice fine lines into those really tiny areas in there. Okay, so we have a really good foundation now. Now we're going to come in with some warmer tones and lighter whites. So I've got my little buddy, no, Mama, Mama brush. Okay, so, all right, so we still have this really kind of like a cool brown over here, and I'm gonna work back into that. And just as a recap to remember how to create that again, that was, our brown was our orange and black, and then I added white to this, but I'm gonna make it even lighter because I just want it to be a lot lighter. And then if you want to warm it up a little bit, you can do a little bit of that yellow, that primary yellow in there as well. So it kind of gives you a little hint of the gold. So I definitely want to kind of play with that in the mix. So it's kind of this creamy gold color that I just mixed up. So again, lots of white, primary yellow, and then a little touch of that brown that we mixed up earlier. And again, brown is mixed up with orange and black. So we've got this, and I always keep lots of white nearby too. So I'm going to start to work into this little section here of, again, either your little house or your little church, whatever you need. So, all right, so I'm going to go ahead and work into this little section. And then again here, and I'm doing just more of a nice vertical stroke, just up and down. I do have to do the cut-in work here. I'm gonna go ahead and work into this. And as I go, I still like to push into a lot of the white as I go too. That definitely adds a nice little highlight into the mix. Keeps it light and bright because it is an old white house. But it is weathered and worn, so it's not gonna be a perfect white. So I'll keep working this into this little section. And then once you've got that base down, then you can also really add in a lot more white. And I kind of just do a light drag right over the top, pull it down right over the top. That helps lighten it up a lot. And just adding a little bit more white, lighten it up quite a bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and come in with white right here over the top. Just to get in there, I'm switching my stroke a little bit more over to the horizontal stroke, but then I'm going to finish off with a vertical stroke here, just to help it be consistent. And I'll go back over that little circle. I kind of did a little bit of an overlap, so I'm going to come back in with my little bit brush in that darker black, and I'm going to recircle that. And then this is that color we just mixed up over the front, but now I can kind of work it into the other areas as well, because to me, right now, this is a little bit too contrasting with the lavender or the periwinkle and the grays. So I want to subdue it a little bit. So I'm going to take this warm color that we just mixed up, and that's our white and our primary yellow and our brown. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of lightly, just very lightly brush over these other surface areas. That way they won't be so contrast. We still have our contrast between the sky and the house, but this kind of helps subdue that gray a little bit, lightens it up a little bit. So I'm just kind of lightly going over it, just real lightly. And I'm even going to touch into just tiny amounts of white here too. And start to add more of those little accents in. Hair is getting in my paint. Okay. All right, just a little bit more white here. And I'm going to keep just pulling down just pure white at this point, and just kind of pull it down in little vertical strokes all the way down. So this helps lighten it up a lot, and kind of even helps it have more of that worn, weathered look to it. And then I just reinforced another dark line. I accidentally lost one, so I came back in, kind of filled that in. But for the most part, this is a stage where you can just add in more of the white, and you can even come in with a smaller brush too, like your little buddy brush. And just kind of work that up and down, and just make little strokes of that white too. Awesome. Okay, so that's a really nice start on that. And then let's go ahead and do some of our greenery that comes off to the side. Okay, so we need to gather some lovely green paint. Give you some options here. All right, so I have some Viridian. This kind of pushes to more of like a teal color. It's quite lovely. And then I'm gonna go ahead and switch plates here. I'm gonna push this off to the side. Some of that Viridian. And then let's go ahead and grab some cadmium green. I have a brand new tube, so I need to go ahead and lift off that foil seal. And then I want to make sure I've got some black nearby too. So we'll be darkening that up quite a bit. Let's see. So Mars Black. And then I still have my white nearby. So first thing that we have going on, we have a little bit of a mountain here. So I do have my green. We're gonna approach that very quickly, but for right now, I don't wanna forget my little mountain. So I've got my mama brush. I'm gonna go right back into that gray and that dark black. And let's go ahead and line this right here. Using the line edge of the brush to go ahead and line this out. And I can lighten it up just a little bit, just underneath, with a little bit of that light gray. All right, again, more black. And a little bit of white for a charcoal look that happens over here. And this is my mama brush. And then I'm going to go a lighter gray for this next section in here. You know what, a little touch of blue next, just for fun. So that was that cyan blue. We already had it on our plate. I'm gonna push that into that gray color, and work that through. And just drag that all the way across. Nice fluid stroke just all the way across now. Again, more of that cyan blue. Let's make sure we can see that roof line. That doesn't get lost. We want to make sure that stays intact. So I'll continue on with a little bit more of this cyan blue with the gray. Pull that out to the side. Let's do some of that as a base over here too. All right, so I've got my green over here on the side. We had a little bit of that Viridian and a little bit of the cadmium green, so I'm gonna push into that. I have not even rinsed off my brush, it's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep the mix of everything happening. And then I'm gonna push this into the side here. I grabbed a little bit of black, kind of working that in, just soft little strokes across here. Just kind of lightly drag it with that little bit of black, creating some shadow in there over the green. And same thing here, a little bit more black. Just kind of softly drag it across. Okay, now I want to pull down some of that green into this area here too. Just do a little bit of a reference of some foliage happening down here. So I kind of just mark this out. Just kind of little light pushes into the paint. And then we're going to start to work in a little bit of a lighter green. So I'm going to push into a little bit of white, a little bit of cadmium green, and then just kind of lightly push that in. And we're doing the foundation right now, so we'll definitely come back in with some texture here in a minute that will kind of pounce in over the top and make it look a little bit more grassy. So just getting that foundation in first. So it looks a little bit kind of crude at the moment, just still a very raw stage. But it will definitely start to evolve here in a moment. And I'm going to do a little bit of a cross stroke, just back and forth. I'm going to pull in a little bit more of this black now and do little tiny cross strokes, just back and forth. And definitely working in a lot more of that black. We're creating a lot more of that shadow in there, and just back and forth. I'm going to kind of push some of this, just little tiny lines that kind of go through. Got a little touch of that meridian and green and through here. Just getting little tiny accents. All right, so now we need to start softening this up a little bit. Some of our lighter creamy tones. So we're going to switch gears. We've got some of this darker foundation worked in. And then we can start to work back in with some of our browns and our lighter tones here. So I'm going to go back to this primary yellow. So let's get a little bit more of that primary yellow here. And then we want to make sure we've got a lot more brown off to the side as well. So let's do a little bit of a bigger mix with that. So I'm going to come back in with some this is Cadmium Orange. And then we'll want some Mars Black, because we're going to mix that orange with the black and we'll make more brown again. And then I've got plenty of white off to the side over here too. I'll want to make sure and grab more of that as well. So I'm going to take nice big dollop of the white. Okay, so first things first, let's go ahead and come back into this. Let's see, I grab my mama brush and whoops, I'm gonna go ahead and mix my brown up. So I've got my orange and my black. Let's mix that up. I want lots of brown to work with here. So that is it's a very dark, dark brown. Actually, I can add a little yellow to that. I'm gonna add more orange because I was a little bit too heavy-handed with my black mix. So I don't want it to be quite that dark. That is like a dark teak. It's definitely brown, but it's more like a teak brown. So I'm gonna get a warmer section over here to play with when needed. This is more of that like chocolate brown. Okay, so as we start to work into this now, I want to start to make a little bit of a grassy feature happening up here at the top. So I've got my mama brush. I'm going to kind of hard pressure it out. Sometimes as you're mixing, the brush can get too filled with paint and you might actually have to just rinse out completely, re-dry, and in order to get a nice thin line again. And I'm going to go ahead and push into a lot of this primary yellow, and then also the brown. Do have a little bit of white nearby, have that on the brush to begin with, so I'm getting a really nice, awesome gold here. And then as I work this in, I start at the base and I just pull straight up. And so I make just little tiny, it feels like little blades of grass, but it's that little bit of like plant life coming up over the top. So we have our shadow established in the back with a darker color, and then here in the front I've got these lighter shades of the golden tones coming in and popping in over the front. So I've got that primary yellow and then our brown and a little bit of white sometimes too. Just keep pulling that up right over the top. And you can make these a little bit thinner too. So if you want, let's see, like we have our little buddy brush, and I'm gonna go ahead and take little buddy and I'm gonna go ahead and push into the same color, but I definitely have a much thinner line. So it definitely has it's a little bit more delicate. So this will just keep coming in over the top. So this is when a lot of that really nice texture starts to come in right over the top. I'm going to come in with a little bit more white. That will make it look a little bit more subtle, muted, not as bright with that primary yellow. Just keep pulling that up over the top there. I'll switch back to my mama brush here. Pull in a little bit more of the white. That gives me more of like a creamy tone with it. And we'll just keep working this in all over the surface here. And some areas I actually will come in with more of the brown. So if I need a little bit more of the shadow to work in, then I'll touch into more of the brown, and then sometimes I'll lighten it up a little bit. I'll push right back into that lighter tone of the cream and the white, work in over the surface. And you can even go back into your green too. So on the other plate that we had, we still have a little bit of that cadmium green over on the other plate, so I can even touch into a little bit of that too. And then that will bring in a really lovely color, almost just softly blends with everything else we have going on and pulls in some nice like sage tones to it. Because that green will start to mix with the creams and the whites, and it will go to like a sage color. So just lots of repetition on this and just pulling straight up. Again, pulling straight up and then just kind of lift off with a light hand. And when I do go back in and mix a little bit, load up the brush, sometimes you'll have to kind of squeegee out the paint a little bit so that it doesn't get too thick and you lose the ability to make that nice thin line. So as I'm pressing into more paint, I'll kind of just really hard, firm pressure, and that helps release that paint. So now I'm back to a thin line again, so that helps out a lot as well. And I'll just keep taking this all the way through here. This color that I'm pushing into is, again, kind of a light brown with more of the white. So I'll kind of lightly push this in some horizontal strokes as I go. And I'm going to come in with more of that lighter brown. Again, that's that brown with a little bit more of the white added into it. Working a little bit more white too as I go to kind of help get it back to more of a muted tone here. I'll take some of these just back and forth, just light hand and just kind of lightly drag it across. Come back over the top with a little bit more of this grassy look here. So I went really light there, and now I have to come back in with a little bit of shadow, so I'll be coming back in with more of the brown. And then don't forget about those little touches of green too. You can definitely add those back into the mix. And then that will even create a nice little hint of sage happening in there. So lots of texture through here. Working in a lot more white now. Grab some more of this green on the same plate. Start working that in a lot more here too. So just lots of repetition here. And then don't be afraid of some black coming back in with your green too, so that can create a nice little shadow in here as well. And I'm grabbing a little bit more of that brown. Touch into that yellow, push that through. And then also, if your canvas is flat, you can also play with a little bit more of the water. So I'm going to show you that too. So holding it flat, add a little bit more water, and then that can really help you kind of extend that paint, make it quite a bit more fluid through the surface too, so that it doesn't dry brush on you as much. And then there's also that the pounce effect that you can do as well. And so if you're doing all of your texture in here and you want to just texture it out like this, you can hit on the side of the brush as well. It's a different look, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that over here in the corner as well here. So side of the brush and just a light tap over the surface. So that can give you some really nice texture. So this is a really fun way to relieve stress and also get a nice texture over the surface area. I'm adding a little bit of blue in there too. It's just a nice little accent. You know, and if you want flowers in your field too, you can certainly do that. A few little touches of purple in here. Maybe there's a few little wild flowers that are popping through. So I'm going to continue on now with a lot more of this pounce effect. And if you have an older brush, you almost might want to designate one brush to just the pounce effect too. So it can be very helpful as you start to do this process more and more, and you might really love it. And then that way you can just really abuse one brush and not worry about it. It will survive one painting if you just do it with this one and you want to keep going and using it for different things later. But if you do love the look of this pounce effect and that texture, then again, I recommend just using one brush to kind of really work this out in all your paintings. Helps. We have some darker shadows coming in, so I'm going to come in with some darker brown in there, pounce that in. And more white with this too, also kind of looks like there's little flowers coming through too. So that's a nice touch. So be a lot more aggressive with the white, add touches in with that to make it look like you've got more of those little white flowers peeking through your field here in front. And just as a visual, so it is on the side of the brush, and it really creates what looks like almost like a little triangular pattern, which tends to emulate leaves and flowers quite nicely. Just a nice patient process, just keep working it in. You can see that okay? So I want a little bit of a cleaner white popping out in the front. Brush is getting a little muddy, so I'm going to rinse off. I'm going to reload with some more white here and just continue that pounce look. Sometimes you can change the direction too, little diagonals in either direction that looks a little bit more floral as well. Little pops of blue are fun in there too. Don't be afraid to kind of play with a little bit more color in here. A little bit of purple maybe. Okay. We're getting real close. And then I went back into a little bit more of the yellow again. Help warm it up a little bit. Becca Creed! I haven't seen you forever. Hello Becca, hello Jamie, hello Pamela. That's all I can see on the screen, but howdy you guys. All right, more pounce, pounce, pounce. Try to get it close to where y'all can see it. I hope I'm not driving you crazy with the bouncing on the canvas. And then you can keep working in a lot more of this white if you want. Just looks a little bit more floral, I think, like wild flowers are coming in into the surface there. It's just a nice subtle technique. And then I'll have to clean up a little bit where I was grabbing my canvas over here, which is not a big deal. I can actually kind of pounce that out. And you can actually do your whole sky and your whole house in a pounce effect too. So I'm going to show you what that looks like a little bit. I've got a little bit of white, a little bit of that light blue, and you can just pounce right over the surface there. That'll help clean that up. But it just takes a little bit of time, but you can absolutely do that same pounce effect over this entire surface area. I will probably redo this painting with a time lapse as well, since it is a pretty time consuming look. So I'll probably do one as a time lapse as well if y'all want to see what that looks like. You can check that out later. All right, and I'm going to give you a little bit more of a hint of what that can look like is on the house as well. So I'm going to come in with more of the white and that lighter yellow. But you can just keep that pounce, just light tap, tap, tap all over the surface area. And just hit that whole surface area with the side of the brush and just more of the white. Really helps it look more like that stucco look too. Okay, so at this point you can either keep going with lots more of that textural effect over everything, or there's different options too. And make sure you know that we do sell lettering with our kit. I'm not going to do lettering today, but I do that a lot with my paintings. But what you can do is you can actually let this completely set up and dry. Take the lettering, anything that you want, and do our transfer paper right over the top. And just transfer it over the top. It will show up over this, and then you can just either paint over the top of that with your little bit brush or just a Sharpie. We also include a permanent marker in all the paint kits now too, so you can just do a permanent marker right over the top too. That's the easiest way. That's what our beginners always tell us. That's definitely the easiest. Or you can use the little bit brush, and when you go to load up the brush and do a really nice fine point, remember this little trick. You can actually take that brush and just kind of twist into the paint, and then that will give you a nice fine point. And then you can also add a little bit of water to it to help it be more fluid and get into really tiny areas. But again, caution on that. Just make sure that your canvas is completely flat when you do that, and then that way you do not get a water run, and then you will be all set. All right, so I think we are done with our cute little house on the hill. So you are welcome to keep working on it if you want, or just kind of keep it just at this stage here, or you can do this other fluid technique. I know I showed you that at the beginning, where you can do a different style too and just make the paint just be very fluid over the surface area as well. So lots of different fun options on that. But y'all enjoy, and this kit is available on our website, tipsyartist.com, and I'll be sure to provide the link in the description below too, so you can always find it. We'll keep the video up forever, and you're welcome to watch it anytime. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Y'all have a beautiful rest of the day, and we'll see you soon.